In 1776, the American colonists didn't just declare independence with lofty words about liberty. They wrote a list, 27 grievances against King George III. And when you read them today, you can't help but feel a chill because so many of these complaints echo in our politics now. But here's what we forget. Signing that document wasn't symbolic. It was treason. Every man who put his name on the Declaration risked his life. If the revolution had failed, they would have been hunted down and executed. They weren't just writing history, they were staking everything on the belief that unchecked power had to be confronted. So let's look at some of those grievances, not as dusty history, but as warnings, because the patterns they called out then are patterns we still see today. One grievance reads, "For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they commit. Armed powers living among you, shielded from accountability, the colonists saw this as oppression. Today, ICE agents cover their faces, don't have to show ID, and act with impunity. The National Guard gets called in for situations that aren't true emergencies, and the taxpayers foot the bill. And too often, when officers use force, we're told they acted in self-defense before there's even time for an investigation. It's the same pattern, power insulated from justice. The founders warned us. That's the kind of thing that destroys legitimacy. Another grievance, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. The colonists saw economic strangulation and taxation without representation as oppression. Today, tariffs and trade restrictions are pushed through by executive order, bypassing Congress. These aren't small decisions. Turning our backs on trade partners reshapes relationships in ways that aren't easily reversed. That's why taxes and tariffs are supposed to go through Congress, not be imposed unilaterally. And the worst part, we were told tariffs would be paid by foreign governments. But in reality, it's the American people. The founders didn't see this as a minor inconvenience. They saw it as grounds for revolution. The Declaration says, "He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance. The king shut down legislatures and blocked urgent laws to avoid accountability." Today, we see the same patterns. When representatives aren't sworn in on time, when recesses are taken early to dodge votes, or when Congress is kept out of key decisions for extended periods. When urgent issues, immigration, healthcare, infrastructure, are ignored, it's the same tactic: delay, obstruct, and deny the people's voice. The founders didn't see this as procedural delay. They saw it as abuse of power. Another grievance, for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefit of trial by jury. For the colonist, due process wasn't optional. It was a line between justice and oppression. Today, immigration and deportation proceedings often deny representation, rush people through administrative hearings, or remove families without a jury trial. Whole lives are decided without ever having their day in court. The founders didn't see this as a technicality. They saw it as injustice. The Declaration says, "He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people." The colonists saw bureaucracy and unchecked authority as harassment. Today, we see echoes in sprawling agencies, ICE agents who cover their face, DOJ decisions that feel more political than judicial. Even the Department of Defense adding restrictions that expand power without oversight. And it isn't just government offices. Look at Elon Musk and Doge. He wasn't elected. No one really knows what went on or why, or how he was working with the government. That power exercised outside the consent of the governed. The founders warned us, when authority multiplies without transparency, it becomes harassment, not protection. The Declaration reminds us governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. This wasn't just a nice phrase, it was the foundation. Power is only legitimate when it comes from the people. But look how often that's ignored today. Executive orders bypass Congress. Agencies expand their reach without oversight, and decisions get made behind closed doors. Nobody voted for Elon Musk to have influence over our government policy, yet deals and collaborations happen without transparency. That's not consent. That's power being exercised without accountability. And when leaders forget that their authority comes from us, they forget the very principle the country was built on. Jefferson wrote, "All experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed." In plain terms, people put up with a lot before they act. And isn't that exactly what we see now? We get used to corruption, gridlock, and abuse of power because the change is slow. It's livable, so we don't rock the boat, even though it keeps getting worse. Bit by bit, we adapt to dysfunction until it feels normal. That's the danger the founders were warning about. Complacency is the soil where oppression grows. The Declaration wasn't just a list of complaints. It was a warning. When governments ignore grievances, shield itself from accountability, and bend the rules to protect its own power, legitimacy collapses. In 1776, that collapse led to revolution. Today, we face the same test. Do we accept dysfunction as normal, or do we remember that consent and accountability are the lifeblood of freedom? But here's the hopeful part. The men who signed that document faced the same kinds of grievances we see today. And they had the courage to risk everything: their reputation, their fortune, even their lives. They were branded as traitors, and if the revolution had failed, they would have been executed. Yet they stood firm, and because of that bravery, The course of our country changed. That should give us strength and resolve. Their example reminds us what it means to stand up for what you believe, even when the cost is high. If they could do it, then we can learn from them now. Thank you so much for watching my episode. Please let me know in the comments if you agree that the Declaration sounds an awful lot like what we're going through in this moment in history. And if you haven't already, please subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.